Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. It's your boy Rob here. Today, I had the honor of interviewing Pat Williams. He is the co-founder of the Orlando Magic. He was an NBA GM for four different teams. In 1983, his Philadelphia 76ers won the NBA championship, and it was a great honor to have Pat on the show and get to talk to him. He's a legend, so of course, it was an absolute honor to have him on. Another great interview for you guys here. I hope you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, here's Pat Williams. Pat, thanks for joining me today.
Rob, nice to be with you. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. All right, so I want to start off with, so I read that you served some time in the Army. So I wanted to ask you, what are some lessons that you learned during your time in the Army?
Well, I did go in the fall of September of 1964. I was in the United States Army and did my basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, my advanced training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. It was an eye-opener for me. I feel proud now that I did serve our country. At the time, did I love it? No, I didn't. It was tough. It was hard. I missed my civilian life, but I also knew that as an American, I had my duty to fulfill and to perform. And as I look back now, I'm very glad that I had that experience in the military.
For sure, yeah. Thank you for your service. All right, so I also read that you played college baseball at Wake Forest. So what did you love most about your time playing baseball there?
Well, I had a great experience at Wake Forest. I was there for 4 years. I was the varsity catcher during that period. We won the Atlantic Coast Conference title my senior year, 1962. My 4 years at Wake Forest meant a great deal to me. I learned so much, met so many interesting people, and had a chance to play college baseball at the very highest level. When you're competing against North Carolina and NC State, Clemson, South Carolina was then in the ACC. And that was a great part of my life. And it laid the foundation for everything I've done since. All these years in professional athletics, I think it really got its foundation, its start during my Wake Forest days.
All right, so now to get into basketball, so you were the GM of four different NBA teams. So I want to ask you, what are some key factors into being a successful general manager in the NBA?
Well, I think these are leadership positions. Yes, it involves basketball, but more importantly, it's leadership. And so to be a successful GM, first of all, you've got to be a visionary. You've got to see down the road, and you've got to have a direction where your organization is going. You can call them goals, but I tend to call it vision. Visionary leaders see farther down the road than others. They see before others, and they know where they're headed. And then the other thing I've learned about my time in those leadership positions, you've got to be able to communicate well. You've got to be able to communicate with your owner. You've got to be able to communicate with your coach. That's vital. And you've got to be able to communicate with your staff, night of game help. You've got to be able to communicate well with the media because you're constantly selling your team. And you've got to be visible and available to people. Those are two things that I think are absolutely critical if you're going to be a successful GM. It's all about leadership.
All right, so now to get into your time with Philadelphia. So what led you to trade for Dr. J and Moses Malone?
Well, those were great days. We acquired Dr. J in a cash transaction in the fall of 1976, and Julius came to us, and we had you can just call it the Julius Erving decade. We got to the finals 4 different times. And then, of course, Moses arrived in the fall of 1982, and we had our dominant center. And Moses went on to have a phenomenal year that first year, 1982-83. And that's the year that we went and swept through the playoffs. We beat the Lakers in the finals, and the city of Philadelphia celebrated in a huge fashion. And that's the last time that the 76ers have won a title. So that 83 team will always have a strong, firm memory in the minds of sports fans in that area.
For sure. So speaking of that team, like what was it like becoming an NBA champion?
It was a wonderful experience, particularly that parade down Broad Street with who knows how many people. You know, they estimated millions, but that will never be forgotten. And I remember thinking, boy, this is so much fun. We ought to do this every year at the end of the season. Just have a big parade every year, whether we won or not. It was so much fun. But unfortunately, we couldn't get back there. We tried. We wanted to repeat and repeat, but we'll just have to be satisfied with that one title in 1983.
All right. So who are some players, maybe from that team that you still keep in contact with today?
Well, Maurice Cheeks, our point guard, has been a head coach, and an assistant coach in the NBA for many, many years. And when his teams would come through, I'd always go out of my way to say hello to him. Bobby Jones lives in Charlotte. I'm in touch with Bobby and his family. See Julius from time to time. We lost Moses a few years ago. Andrew Toney lives in Atlanta, and I'll run into him every now and then. So I do have wonderful relationships with all of those players. And Billy Cunningham, of course, our coach of that team. Billy, we cross paths from time to time, talk on the phone occasionally. And so I do stay in touch with them all. And it's a privilege to do that.
No, that's great to hear. So now to move on to your time in Orlando. So what led you to join Jim Hewitt in the pursuit of bringing the NBA to Orlando?
Well, I was in need of a new challenge. We'd been in Philadelphia for 12 years. We'd won that title. I think we had reached all our goals in Philadelphia. And the biggest challenge in any field of professional sports is to start up your own team, an expansion team. And I had that opportunity here in Orlando, thanks to the invitation of a businessman named Jimmy Hewitt, who asked me to come down here and head up the effort. And it was risky. There were no guarantees what the league was going to do about adding more teams. But as it turns out, we started our effort in June of 1986, and 10 months later, April of 87, the NBA awarded expansion teams to 4 cities, all 4 that were trying: Miami, Orlando, Charlotte, and Minneapolis. And it was a great moment here in Central Florida, the first time we had a major league team. And that team to this day means a great deal to this community.
No, that's awesome. In Orlando, like you drafted Shaq. So what's it like to see all the success he's had, not only in basketball, but just in life in general?
Well, Shaq's a great guy. He not only was this monster basketball player and a dominant force and a Hall of Famer, but Shaq knows how to go about life and take his skills and his talent, and above all his personality, and put it to use on television. His commercials are just amaze me. I mean, Shaq's been retired now for what, almost 10 years? And yet he does more commercials of any sports person who's active. So Shaq never goes away. People remain very fascinated with him. He's lived his life well, and he's a big part of what we did here. That winning that draft lottery in 1992 was a turning point in our franchise's history with the arrival of Shaq. And we're all big Shaq fans here. He kept his roots here in Orlando for many, many, many years. And every time he pops up, I think, boy, that's the guy we drafted in '92. He was just a 20-year-old kid, and he's done an amazing job with his life. And above all, he wants to make a difference with other people. He's a giver. He's a contributor. and he wants to take his success and use it to help other people.
So, okay, also in Orlando, so you brought in Penny Hardaway. So what was it like working with Penny?
Well, Penny came the next year. We won another draft lottery in 1993, miraculously. And that was the draft. On the night of the draft, we made a trade with the Warriors and came away with the pick that got us Penny. We thought Penny and Shaq would be the best combination. And for those years in the mid 90s, they were a wonderful combination. You know, you had the great young big man, you had the great ball handler and out backcourt guy, and together they were a terrific pair. The only sad part is they weren't together long enough here. Shaq went on to the Lakers. Penny had a couple of serious knee problems and never did fulfill his promise. But for that period when they were together, that was a dynamic duo, and they made a world of difference here with basketball and interest in the Magic here in Central Florida.
For sure. All right, so how much is that 1995 Eastern Conference champion team like mean to you?
It means a lot. We thought we were going to win it, particularly with game one. We got up to such a good start and then let game one get away, and it seemed that the series just kind of unraveled from there. And we thought we would get back, many years. The next year, 96, we got knocked out by the Bulls. Michael Jordan was back in full form, and then Shaq departed, and that was it. We've been back to the finals once since then in the Dwight Howard era, but we never quite got there again. But 95 was a year that, people around here will never forget it. It was a beautiful season. And we just wish that we had a better performance against the Rockets in the finals.
All right, so if you were still the GM today of the Magic, what moves would you make to make Orlando a title contender again?
Well, it always comes down to, at the end of the day, it comes down to the draft. If you scout well and evaluate well and draft well year after year, you're going to put together a very competitive team, particularly in those years when you're drafting high, up at the top of the draft. That's the key to success in any sport. How well do you scout? How well do you evaluate? How well do you draft? And then how well do you train and teach and develop young talent? So that's the key. And we're hoping that all these youngsters that we've got now will get healthy, first of all, and then begin to mesh together. And of course, this draft coming up is another important one. There's a group of outstanding very young players coming into the draft position, it appears. And we want to be on top of that and make sure we pick the right guy.
All right, so other than the Magic, are there any other teams that you enjoy watching today?
Well, I do have my TV on most nights, watching games on different channels. The NBA is all over the place. I do enjoy watching the 76ers. I do enjoy watching Milwaukee. I'm more focused on the teams in the East because that's where my roots are. But Milwaukee and Philly are my two favorites to watch. Last night, I watched that game. They had an incredible game going into overtime. I'm also kind of intrigued with the Knicks. They've come back, and they're a competitive team now, and that's happened very quickly. If you've got a strong Knicks team, that's good for the league. We play the Knicks tonight in New York. So that'll be an interesting game. So those are some of the teams I enjoy watching. You've got to be intrigued watching Dallas. Doncic is such a great talent. I enjoy watching them a great deal. And I'm a Trae Young fan, so watching the Hawks in Atlanta is also always a pleasant experience.
No, for sure. Those are all great teams to watch. And I'm glad you brought up the Knicks because I'm a huge Tom Thibodeau fan. So I'm happy to see what he's doing already in his short time in New York.
He's a good coach, strong defensive coach, very disciplined in his approach, works extremely hard, and he's got the Knicks playing good ball. They're far from a perfect team, and like all teams, they're dealing with injuries and illness, which has hurt them. But that's true of all the teams in the league. I don't know who's gone through a period with everybody being healthy, but that's your goal. That was one of the keys, by the way, to our great team in Philadelphia, the 82-83 club. We went through that whole season with no injuries.
Wow.
Nobody got hurt. Everybody played the whole season. And that makes a huge difference if you've got a healthy ball club.
All right, so one last question. It doesn't relate to basketball, but I still had to ask you, like, what's it like being the father of 19 kids?
Well, we have had a big family. We have a big family. The children are all grown now. They're all in their mid-30s to up into their late 40s. But it was quite an experience. We ended up with 19 children. 14 of them we adopted from other countries. We're now in the grandparenting world. We have 19 grandchildren. They range in age from, well, I guess 1.5 up to 16. So we're having quite a time with this whole grandchildren business. That's been fascinating, great fun.
For sure. No, that's amazing to hear that you have like a big family. I'm all about family too, so that's awesome.
Good for you. Rob, it's great to visit with you. By the way, my next book that I've written will be out in mid-May. It's called Revolutionary Leadership. And we look at the great leaders of the Revolutionary War period and how they led during that period of crisis. And because of their leadership, we have a country today. So that book will be out. Brian Kilmeade of Fox and Friends wrote the foreword. And that book will be out in the middle of May. So that's the latest book that I've written.
That's great, Pat. No, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Rob, nice to visit with you. Thanks a million. All the best to you.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.